How I begun?
Yeah.
How did it begin?
How did it
How did it begin?
Okay.
So, from a probably from quite a young age, but sort of round about the age of 14, my father was in the army. We moved around a lot. I think it's possibly one of the moving is one of the reasons I became interested in photography. I lived in a lot of places around the world. In fact, by the time I was 20, I'd lived in over 20 houses. We were moving that often. And Hong Kong, Cyprus, Germany. There's a whole load of different places you'd live. You might not stay there long, sometimes 18 months, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years if you were lucky, but you just regularly move. And so I saw a lot of different places, and you'd have a camera and you take the pictures. So I was at boarding school a lot as well here in the UK, and there was, you could do your own developing. So I've done my own, I used to do my own developing, black and white images, and I've always been quite competent at doing that. I've got some of my old student ones here, which are like demonstrations and that type of stuff, rock bands, the usual type of stuff you do, but they were done in the dark room, and then I would print them. We were always going down to demonstrations and friends getting arrested and taken away and for being over exuberant. But there was some great scenes down there. I'd do bands. Don't know whatever happened to these people. And then I think we lived in Berlin for a number of years. Not a number of years. Actually, probably about nearly 2 years. And I was a student over here in the UK. And I would come backwards and forwards and work out in Berlin. And Berlin was during the Cold War, and it was the wall. We were 300k inside East Germany. We were surrounded by the wall, and Dad had a lot of photographic equipment, strangely, and it was good quality stuff. And I used to pinch it from time to time, and I'd go off and I'd take pictures. Locally, because you were confined within Berlin. I'll just get a picture here. So you just had to keep coming back to the same place all the time, but you'd always find somewhere to take pictures. So this one here is a picture of Glienicke Bridge, which is the Bridge of Spies, and taken late at night, long exposure. And a lot of my photographs nowadays are actually quite long exposures. I always use a tripod generally, and the exposures will generally range from half a second to 30 seconds quite often, and sometimes even longer. And this is like I suppose a moment. It's a moment when I've realised what the cameras can do and the images that you can come up. I mean, maybe to other people that's not very artistic or anything like that, but it's to my mind, and it was an image that I really liked, and came across with the atmosphere of what that was. We used to cross over on that bridge from time to time, and they were still swapping the spies on that bridge. I never got the spy swaps. There used to occasionally be banks of press boxes when there was going to be a spy exchange. That's a defining image for me, really, that one there. So you've gone from the student reporting type thing to having to get a job, and I suppose my photography was on hold for many years, but imagery became an important part of my job. I worked for the emergency services for a number of years, and photography and video was quite an important part of that. But I think actually what was happening at that time was, because I was doing shift work, I was going in to work at times that people weren't going into work. I was going to work at like 5 o'clock in the morning as the sun was coming up, and you were seeing this imagery around you. Even in the city in London, and you would want to I would want to capture that, but I couldn't because I was going to work. I started doing that. I started deciding to capture it and I would get up maybe an hour early before I went into work at 5 o'clock or whatever, and do like night photography. So I do a bit of astro, that type of stuff, or the sun rising. In the summer, the sun's getting up at around 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and I was able to start capturing that. But did I still have the creative eye? Not necessarily. And then I went on a journey where I tried to improve my compositions, and really I did that by joining a local camera club, and being with other like-minded people, whether that be artists or photographers, and understanding how to build an image. And you can build an image in photography. It's just a question of being there at the right time, knowing what the scene is, having done the planning, knowing where the lighting is going to be, and sometimes you might have to come back 4 or 5 times to get the shot that you want with the right composition and to nail it. And the question is that art or is that just doggedness? You've got to have the eye and to build that image that someone wants to see, and that's what composition is all about, to allow someone's eye to stay with the image. And you might leave questions with the image, so people are standing there going, well, I wonder what was over there, or I wonder why he did that, or there might be a question, or just you don't know why your eye's being drawn around it, but the artist does, because they've made sure that there's certain elements within that picture, within that composition, that allows a human's eye to pleasingly be drawn around the image. So that's why these images here, this is my tester. If I can put up with the image for maybe a month, it's normally an image that I come back to and keep looking at, and that normally means it's an image that's going to work not just for me but for other people as well. I won't go into the technical side of things, but you have to go with modern technology. I mean, the cameras now have just come on tenfold in recent years. They're not taking pictures for you, but you have to understand what they're capable of to get the most out of them. I've just had this camera converted into an infrared spectrum, and it will do different spectrums inside, which is great for black and white photography. I just love the blacks that produces. It's probably come through already a bit, but for me, the photography doesn't finish at the shot, it finishes at the final composition. It doesn't finish at the shot. For me, it finishes here with a framed picture, and then what people think about that framed picture. Do I care what people think about my pictures? I listen to people who say you shouldn't care about what people think about your photography or your art and just get on and do it. I'm not really convinced about that one. I mean, am I taking the picture for myself or am I taking the picture for other people? I'm taking the picture for the people to see and enjoy. So yeah, I do care about the image, and I don't get much enjoyment out of taking the image just for myself. But for me, I'm trying to look for the essence within my local location, and that's why I do a lot of the woodland photography, and it's always very, very different within the woods, and it's never the same. And people say, well, the woods might have been there for centuries, but you know there'll be a storm tomorrow, and the complete scenery has changed sometimes. It's never the same in the woods. It will be a different time of the year, it'll be different lighting conditions, it will be raining, it will be windy, it will be green, it will be yellow, there'll be no leaves at all, there'll be mist. That's what it's about, and it's looking for that scene and that composition to get people to look at that photograph and think, I like that. But there's more to that, I suppose. There's a picture downstairs which isn't a woodland scene, but I've used old oak floorboards, antique oak floorboards, and the point behind that is the frame can be older than the trees that you're seeing in the image. The scene that I produced a little while ago, it was all to do with a young tree growing up in the shadow of another tree that had fallen down and hit by lightning. In fact, that image was exhibited around the UK with Forestry England. And the point being that the frame is older than even the oak tree that had been hit by lightning and fallen down. And it's just that sort of concept for people to stand and look at and understand. It's I suppose a single person's task, this, the photographer, the landscape photographer, and I quite like almost the lonely aspect to it, and I seek out some of the most remote places sometimes to go and do this photography. Locally I can find extremely remote places, partly because it's so early in the morning, because I'm an early morning photographer, so no one's up, not even the dog walkers, but also it's in the woods, and I will just get lost for I can look up after doing some photography in woodland and 4 hours will have gone just like that, because you become so engrossed in it, just looking for the compositions, but just really sucking in the energy of that beautiful woodland. So that to me, that's the journey, is an individual's journey in producing the image and then coming back with it that other people didn't see. But I'll go even further than that. I go to Scotland a lot, but Scotland I tend to go by myself quite often. I used to go with friends, but it used to get bored with me stopping and taking photographs all the time. So I do it alone now, and I've just come back after 3.5 weeks up there. And I've been to some of the most remote, gorgeous places in Scotland. I think I mentioned earlier that there's this place here, which was the Outer Hebrides on the Isle of Harris. And I wild camp as well, so I've got a camper van and I'll take it, but I've got tents and I'll go up on top of the mountain, and sometimes if the weather's good enough I'll camp on top of the mountains, because you can get sunset and sunrise. It's like a bit of a win-win.